we're all set to go?
Yep.
Let's
obviously, Ollie, is he playing?
Yeah, he's playing.
Thanks for that. Yep.
He's fine.
Rest of the changes?
There'll be 3 changes. We've obviously got 2 injuries, and we'll leave Toddy Marshall out and bring Sam Gray in, and we'll bring Dougal Howard in, as I said, with Ollie Wines. So,
is there any risk with Ollie? Has he sort of
yeah, I suppose there's some risk, but we've been really cautious, been really careful, and made sure we've waited. Probably could have played last week if we had have really pushed. We didn't want to take that risk. It's funny, isn't it? Because you go 7 days later, does it make much difference? In something like that, it probably does make a bit of a difference. You watched him out there training, he's fine.
Toddy just hasn't given you what you wanted so far?
No, he's been, Todd's been a little off for probably the month of JLT and the first 2 rounds. He was pretty solid against Melbourne without being great. And he's the first to admit that he's just been a little bit off. He hasn't been involved enough. We understand that we need to have everyone involved for long parts of the game.
He's not usually one you measure by goals as such. You've mentioned a few times he hasn't been doing the other things.
No, we measure him as much by pressure, by work rate, by getting to contests one after another, and he's perhaps been a little bit off that. He's trying to figure out his spot a little bit, I reckon, at the moment, and that's always a challenge for us still with young forwards. He's still a young forward, hasn't played much footy.
Just with Sam Gray, is it trying to go a little bit smaller against Brisbane, or?
No, we're picking people in best form. I think that's really important to understand. It's not for Brisbane. It's what we're going to do to make ourselves better. And we understand we've got an opposition, but we're hopefully never in the position where we're picking to suit the opposition. We're picking what's best form for us. And Sam, as everyone seen last week, the sample was hard to ignore.
I know you can't fit them all in on best form, but what do you say to someone like Jack Trengove, who has games like that semi-regularly and just can't squeeze?
Exactly, just keep going. That's all. The options are, what are the options for a player? Is Jack understands exactly where he sits with us, and we're really comfortable with where he sits. So he plays, as you say, week in, week out, he plays pretty well. And good on him, and hope he just continues to do that. And at some stage, the opportunity may arise for Jack.
It's tough for a player like that, being stuck behind so many people?
Oh, yeah, I imagine so. Everyone wants to play. It doesn't matter where you are in your career, you want to play, and he's no different.
Who would have thought, Ken, round 3, Brisbane 2-0, Port 2-0,
Yeah.
it's turned into a top of the table clash almost.
Yeah, it's a big game. They're absolutely flying. I went and watched them last week. They're in good nick, and they beat the reigning premiers by a margin after the first quarter. They put a space in them, and they went there last week and just kept at it all day and won the game. They've got a lot of good players all over the field now, and they've set themselves up. Fags and the team, they've set themselves up. They've drafted well. They've got good young people in their football club, and now they're growing together. It's no coincidence that they're starting to get there.
I know it's all about what you do generally, but do you have to put a little bit of work into Lachie Neely's been electric the first 2 weeks?
It'll be interesting because it'll be the Lachie Neale, Tom Rockcliffe show a little bit, won't it? Who gets the most? But yeah, the game to game is so much different. Team to team is so much different for us. As you said, the first part, Tom, was that we start off the way we want to start off, and hopefully that keeps Lachie and his teammates out of the game, not just him.
Satterfield went to Rockcliffe in the second half on the weekend. It seemed to curve him a little bit, and Robinson might do the same. What does the other midfielders need to do to sort of support?
Yeah, we don't try to disrupt too much else. If that happens, that's opposition choice, but no different as we just said. If we were to go and put someone on near, you have to adjust around it. Our blokes are aware of that. They've seen a little bit of it firsthand. I think the pleasing part for me is that Tom Rockcliffe's getting tagged again. That's pretty positive.
Is Ollie playing? You touched on it before. Same normal 100% role.
Yeah, no, he'll play in the midfield. There's no doubt about that, and he'll play the way he normally plays, I hope, and that's pretty good. So we look forward to that. But you pick people to play their role. You don't try and hide them. If there's a bit of game time management going on because he hasn't played, that would be the only thing that would go on.
So you've run a few blokes through there in his absence. What happens to maybe the Willem Drews and the Travis blokes, for example, as 2 names?
No, I think they stay. They own their spot in there a little bit. They stay. They keep their space in that middle as much as anyone else does. And Ollie comes in and fits in a part of that. You've seen over the last few weeks we've been quite refreshing through there as far as the number of people who have gone through there. Trav and Willem have had times through there. All the others, Brad's been up there a little bit last week, but we're looking at their times and we're really comfortable with the balance that we want to keep a fresh midfield in there as much as we can. So that Ollie just adds that, just makes it easier to keep them fresher.
Have you finally got a confidence that all of those boys that you listed can actually genuinely play a few different roles now? I know that's something that's been building for a few years for a few of them.
Yeah, it's really positive. I mean, we've seen, if we use Brad and Sam Powell-Pepper as examples, both have hit the scoreboard, in weeks 1 and 2. Sam probably could have kicked 3 goals in both games. He's typically played 85, 90% of his game on the inside for us. Brad's typically played 80 to 90% of his game on the inside. Trav's probably been a bit more forward than he has midfield, so we've created some flexibility in our team. There's no doubt about that.
And just a line on Hartlett, another week away, just a slight little strain.
Yeah. Well, Hammer's situation is this, that he's obviously coming back from an ACL. It's a 12-month injury. There's going to be little hiccups, there's going to be little hold-ups. He's not going to get probably as smooth a sail as you would like to go through it. He's fine. His body's just getting used to playing footy again. That's as simple as that. It's nothing to be worried about from our point of view. It's just part and parcel that goes with it. We'd like that to have been done 4 or 5 weeks ago, but we understand that it was 12 months ago. About 3 weeks' time, I reckon he may have done his knee. So he's not even 12 months yet. So we're really comfortable that if he misses this week, he'll be right.
Forgive me if I'm forgetting someone, but is it something that you would have imagined not too long ago that I think Brad Ebert might be sort of second tall forward this week?
Yeah, you're missing something.
What am I missing?
Westy's pretty tall.
Right. But
Westy, Paddy and Scotty are pretty tall, and Brad will play as like a third tall.
It is a sort of vastly different forward line without Charlie and Todd though. Have you had a bit of a look at the makeup of that as a sort of a smaller forward line and with those two that float in and out?
Yeah, I think what I've said in the past is that Todd pretty much plays like a medium tall forward, albeit he's got a lot of height on him. He's quite good below his knees, and I think that's really important that we think the ground level player and the pressure that he's been able to provide in the past is what's really good for us. And his tall forward craft and goals are a bit of a bonus. So we think we've got the balance still pretty right there.
Ken, how pleased have you been with Scott Weiss at the start of the season?
Very, very happy with Scotty and what he's been able to do since he's come to the club. I mean, he's a great player last year. He worked himself to a level last year where he was really significant in a premiership team. So he's just come here and just continued on, and we couldn't be more pleased with what he's been delivering.
Based on his form last week, though, he's brilliant against Carlton. Do you think he's sort of taken another step forward in his football?
I think that's what he would expect from himself, and any ruckman who's Scotty 26, they just get into that part of their career where they do develop and they do still improve their own game. I would hope that he would still continue to develop his own game, and when we haven't seen near the best of Scott Lycett yet, we hope there's a lot more to come.
You've obviously spoken to Jack. Bit of a setback for him, clearly.
Yeah, not a big,
yeah,
a big setback.
How's his headspace?
I think it's pretty good. As much as you've got someone who, as I said, I described as a bit of a Amber with a lot. He's got a bit of everything in his injury, and speaking to him this morning, still in hospital. He's whether he gets out this afternoon or gets out tomorrow morning, that will be finalised later on today. But he's in a pretty good headspace right now. He understands he's got a big journey in front of him to recover. But first and foremost, we'll look after Jack, make sure he's right, and then let his recovery take place and see how it goes.
He said there were times in the summer where he couldn't get out of bed. How does he respond to this just a week after that elation?
I think there's for Jack. I think it's absolutely disappointing that he's had this injury, but he'd done some really good stuff over the last 4 or 5 months that puts him in a much better position mentally, I think, and that's really important. He'll handle the injury okay. I don't think there's an issue with that. If you ask me, he would much prefer not to have the injury, but he'll get up and about. Like if you speak to Jack on the phone today, like I did, he's full of beans already. He's ready to go. He knows he's got a bit of a journey to.
5 nights in hospital is a lot of nights.
That's a lot of nights, isn't it?
What's happened?
No, nothing. He had significant surgery. Let's say obviously he had a big plate put in his leg. He's had a dislocated ankle. He's had a syndesmosis injury, and when you have surgery like that, you get a lot of swelling. So you've got to be very mindful of when you can come out. So it's more management around the recovery and the early parts of the recovery, because you have to unfortunately take off some protection off and on at times, and depending on what the swelling looks like. So once that's under control, he'll be out.
Given his absence now and his importance in the way that you played him through the first 2 rounds, so have you got the coverage? Yeah,
we're bringing Dougal in. So from a height point of view, Jack's a tall player, Dougal's a tall player. Dougal's got great speed, Jack's got good speed too. There's no doubt that Jack's probably a better user of the football. He's a high quality user of the ball, but we think with Burton and Houston and Burn Jones and Bonner and Cleary, Jonas down there together, I've probably missed someone, that we think we've got that covered pretty well.
A lot made of Dougal last year, and a number of times he scored the ball, but a lot made of the fact that he hasn't marked the ball. So is that something you've looked at, or you're quite happy for him to do what he was doing? Yeah,
I just want him to play well, and he wants to play well. I don't think it's got anything to do whether he marks or spoils. He's just got to be part of the team. He'll be pretty desperate. I know that. He's been wounded a bit by not being a part of the team, and that's one of the good things when you lose people with injury, you get people who are really desperate to come in, and Sam and certainly Dougal will come in with that, and I'm sure our captain will come in with a pretty similar attitude, so it's probably not a bad thing.
Ken, just on Brisbane, where do you see their strengths? Is there anything that you've specifically done this week in preparation?
No, well, they've got, as I said, during the week, they've got a good balance in their team. They've got good tall backs, good tall forwards. They've got great speed around the ball. Their ball movement from end to end is amazing at times, and they can light up pretty quickly. And we've seen that in the first 2 weeks of the season. They had patches where they were a little bit off, but then when they got going, they're pretty dynamic. So, there's a real challenge on our hands, and they're playing at home. I'm sure they're starting to generate a bit of excitement in their own home ground. So we're going to go there and try and knock them over.
What do you said for Charlie Cameron?
One of our defenders. It's silly. It's for us. That's what we will respond with. It's a defender's role. We don't know necessarily who that defender is because we've set up our team in a structure that evolves around the whole team playing a role. All right.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Good luck.